So it's no secret that a lot of my thought is influenced by Teilhard de Chardin, especially this book, The Human Phenomenon. And I wanted to read from this new translation published in 1999 by Sarah Appleton-Weber. The original English translation was published in 1959 and really misinterpreted. Teilhard left out some important passages, and in the attempt to render the French text into English idioms and cliches, sort of clogged the flow of thought that Teilhard was trying to articulate. So Sarah Appleton-Weber produced this version in order to correct some of those mistakes. So I want to read from chapter 3, page 91, if you have this copy of the text. It's called Mother Earth, or Demeter. Demeter, Mother Earth, a fruit? What kind of fruit? Is it seeking to be born on the tree of life? Throughout the previous chapter, we spoke of growth to express the way life behaves. To some extent, we were even able to recognize the principle behind this thrust, linked, as it seemed to us, to the phenomenon of a directed additivity, by which Teilhard means orthogenesis, that there's a certain direction to the phylogenetic lineage of the evolutionary process. By its continuous accumulation of properties, whatever the exact mechanism of this heredity might be, life has a snowball effect. It heaps character on character in its protoplasm. It continually grows more and more complicated. But as a whole, what does this movement of expansion represent? A working and contained explosion like that of an engine? Or a disorderly release in every direction like that of a blast? As I said, all scientists are now in agreement about the general fact that there is an evolution. But whether or not this evolution is directed is quite another matter. Ask a biologist today if he accepts that life is going somewhere in the process of its transformations, and 9 times out of 10 he will answer no, even vehemently. Anyone can see that organized matter is in continual metamorphosis, he will tell you, and even that, with the passage of time, this metamorphosis makes its move toward more and more improbable forms. But is it possible to find any kind of scale on which to appraise the absolute or simply relative value of such fragile constructions as these? By what right, for example, can we say that the mammal, even if it is a human, is more advanced and perfect than the bee or the rose? Starting with the first cell, we can to some extent rank beings in larger and larger circles according to their distance from each other in time. But then, when all these diverse elucubrations of nature reach a certain degree of differentiation, it becomes scientifically impossible to establish any priority among them. Although the solutions are diverse, they are equivalent. In all azimuths around the center of a sphere, every radius is valid. Nothing seems to be going anywhere. At this moment, because our minds hesitate to recognize that there is one precise orientation and a privileged axis of evolution, the rise of science and even the advance of humanity, as I will show, is at a standstill. Weakened by this fundamental doubt, our research is scattered, and we lack the will to decide to build the earth. All anthropocentrism and anthropomorphism aside, I would like to explain here why I believe I see that a direction and line of progress do exist for life. A direction and a line that are even so clearly marked that I am convinced their reality will be universally accepted by the science of tomorrow. Part 1. Ariadne's thread. Then, to begin with, since it is a matter of degrees of organic complication, let us try to find an order in the complexity. If we approach the assemblage of living beings without some kind of guiding thread, we must admit that qualitatively it forms an inextricable labyrinth. What is happening, and where are we going throughout this monotonous succession of fans? True, over the centuries, living beings multiply the number and sensitivity of their organs, but they also reduce them by specialization. And then, what does the term complication really mean? There are many ways for an animal to become less simple. Is it by differentiation of limbs, of integuments, of tissues, of sense organs? All kinds of distributions are possible, depending on your point of view. Among these multiple combinations, is any one really more true than the others? I mean, does it give a more satisfactory coherence to living things as a whole, whether in relation to itself or to the world in which life is engaged? To answer this question, I believe we must turn back to the observations made above, where I tried to establish the mutual relationship between the outside and the inside of things. As I said then, the essence of reality could well be represented by the amount of interiority the universe contains at a given moment. And in this case, evolution would be fundamentally nothing but the continual increase in the course of duration of that psychic or radial energy beneath the mechanical or tangential energy that is practically constant on our scale of observation. What, moreover, I added, is the particular function linking both the radial and tangential energies of the world together experimentally in their respective developments? Clearly, it is arrangement, whose successive progressions are interiorly lined, as we can observe, with a continuous growth and deepening of consciousness. Now let us turn this proposition around, not in a vicious circle, but simply by an adjustment of perspective. From among the innumerable complications undergone by the boiling up of organic matter, are we not at a loss to distinguish the merely surface diversifications from those, if there are any, corresponding to a grouping that renews the stuff of the universe? Well, then, let us simply attempt to recognize among all the combinations life has tried whether or not there are some that might be organically associated with a positive variation in the psyche of those who possess it. If so, and if my hypothesis is correct, then in the equivocal mass of ordinary transformations, certainly these are the ones that represent the complications of paramount importance and the fundamental metamorphoses. Let us seize them and follow them. They may possibly lead us somewhere. Put in these terms, the problem is solved immediately. A preferred mechanism for the play of consciousness certainly does exist in living organisms, and to become aware of it, all we need to do is look inside ourselves. It is the nervous system. There is only one interiority we can positively grasp in the world, our own directly, and at the same time, by an immediate equivalence, thanks to language, that of other human beings. But we have every reason to think that some interiority exists in animals as well, which can be measured approximately by the perfection of their brain. Therefore, let us try to distribute living beings according to their degree of cerebralization. What happens? An order is established, the very order we wanted, and automatically. Part 2.